Hey everyone, welcome to Swift Intent's Daily Update number 3. In this video series, we walk you through building a $1 million a year business in public, sharing an update every day, going over what we learn, what we're doing, and how we are going to get to $1 million a year. In today's update, I want to talk about goals and plans and creating goals and the importance of that as an entrepreneur. I want to go over more aspects of our community, and I want to go over the importance of content and showing up every single day. Yesterday, we spent a large amount of time focusing on goals and plans for our business. And you might be wondering, okay, this is day 3 of daily updates, and we've been building this business for a couple months now. Why goals and plans now? And the reason for that is that I think is something that's really important when it comes to building a business, and I'll get into that. And then I like a precursor to the goals and plans, and that is focus. And so I think it's really important to have a focus for what your business is, what your kind of brand is, as you're moving forward, so that as you are kind of working to build your business on a day-to-day basis, you're not just kind of aimlessly, throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping that some of them land. That your throws are very intentional and very in the right direction. And so Stephen and I have been working together for, I want to say 3 or so months now on Swift Intents and planning out what that is, what that looks like, what our kind of business plan is. And it took some time. We had lots of ideas and things that we wanted to do. And we just kind of picked some initially and see if they kind of stuck or not. And some didn't. And we spent time just kind of refining that and going over what this looks like. Do we do a newsletter? Are we just a content platform? Are we a community? Do we just do apps? How do we approach apps and all these different things? And I'm really glad that we took the time to kind of hash all that out, because now we're in a phase where we can really focus in on what our goals and plans are for this business and map out pretty much exactly how we're going to get there. So now that we're focused on our apps and we're focused on our community and we know what that looks like, we set goals and made plans to achieve those goals so that we, when we put our extra time in every day to be building this business, while having full-time jobs and families and, life and everything, that our efforts are very focused and meaningful. So let's talk about kind of what we did as far as that goes. So essentially what we did is we broke everything down into milestones or phases. And I went with this approach because I think it makes it, I'm a very visual person, so it really helps me to visualize where we are and where we're going. So it kind of looks like this. So we have multiple phases in our goals that we want to be achieving. And these phases are like revenue milestones, essentially. And I used AI for this as well to kind of help me think through things logistically and help me see stuff that I may not be able to see at the earlier stages of entrepreneurship. And if you have AI act as, a professional business consultant, maybe you like people like Alex Hormozi or something, so you put some of his content into your chats and have it take his perspective on things to help you really refine what your business model is and how you're going to approach it. So we are going for a phased approach, and we have MRR milestones that we're hoping to hit at each phase, and we have deadlines for each of these phases. So now that we know, basically our goal is to hit a certain revenue milestone by a certain deadline for each phase, then our plans kind of evolved from there. So let's say phase 1 is to get your first $100. So we are wanting to do $100 MRR for phase 1, and then phase 2, let's say it's 500. And then phase 3, let's say is 1,000. Okay, so this is what we're working towards. And I think the steps to get to each of these phases looks drastically different from the previous one. So getting your first $100, I think looks quite a bit different than getting your first $1,000 MRR. And so now that we know what we want to be accomplishing by what deadlines, let's say this is December. Just for example's sake, this is pretty close to what we're doing, but just for example's sake, okay, so now I know it is, middle of September towards the end, and I need to be at $100 MRR by December. Okay, so what do I need to do to get there? Well, we've got 3 products, right? For us, it is 2 apps and a community. And okay, great. So now we need to kind of work backwards. What are the pricing points of each of those? How are we going to get to $100 MRR for that? And in our case, our apps are $3 a week. So let's see, Sparka is, $2.99 a week. 8IQ is going to be the same thing. And then we have our community. So we have a free trial in our community, but after that free trial, let's see, it is $47 a month for our founder pricing. And then we're going to raise that price once we have our first 25 members in there. Okay, so the math is, you can kind of do the math from there. Let's see, 47 times 2, that is, 94. So we either want 3 members in the community by December, or, a variation of these things. Ideally, it's a variation so that all of our products are growing together. And so that's kind of what we're focused on, right? And so, okay, so we've got these products built. We know what numbers we need to be hitting. How do we hit those numbers? Well, that is going to be content and marketing, right? If people don't know about our products and know the value of our products, then no one's going to download, let alone pay for our products. So that is what our focus is for this first phase to hit our first milestone, is to focus in on content and marketing for these products. What does that look like? Well, largely for our community and our overall brand, it looks like a YouTube strategy. So this daily updates videos, they're part of that strategy and growth. For Sparka and 8IQ, we're exploring a few different things. We're exploring App Store optimization, things like keywords, screenshots, A/B testing, that kind of stuff. We're exploring TikTok marketing for that. Steven's kind of paving the way on that for us for marketing our apps. And, I'm kind of focusing on a lot of our community aspects. And then just as part of that too, we're growing our brand on X. So we're focusing on posting content on a day-to-day basis so that we're consistent there, learning what works and what doesn't as far as growth goes. How can we provide real value to our audience, and not just, clickbaity stuff, but genuine value so that we can build trust and communicate the value that we feel we have to people and see what people kind of want from us. So it's a lot of learning right now, a lot of data collection, so to speak, is part of the strategy, but it's largely focused on marketing. So that's kind of what that looks like. And then we're going to basically, once we hit those milestones, we're going to kind of review and adjust what aspects of our plan worked really well for phase 1. Do we want to keep what worked and maybe doesn't look like it'll work for the next phase, for the next milestone, and what didn't work, how can we adjust? So that's kind of how we're approaching our goals and plans, for our business. And I think this is really important for really any type of business, especially, us indie developers that are starting this out and balancing full-time jobs and otherwise while trying to get your apps off the ground. And I think focus and clarity helps so much, especially in this age of AI where things are moving really fast and it feels like, people are becoming millionaires overnight, which is not necessarily the case, but it does feel that way a lot of the time. And so it's really easy to get caught up in the noise and distraction of it all. But if you can have focus and clear direction of where you want to be heading, I think a lot of that dissipates. And, you can be following, you should be active on social media and following these trends and stuff to see what's working and what's not. There's valuable information there, but don't lose sight of what your goals are. Especially if your time is really limited, it's important that your efforts are focused so that you actually can hit your milestones. And if you want to become a full-time indie developer, then, focus is what's really going to get you there. So that's how we think about these sort of things. And one thing that I thought was shocking, or at least a little bit surprising, after we set all these goals and plans yesterday, a great level of overwhelm, I think, dissipated from me personally, where it's okay, well, I know what I need to be doing every day, like how many posts and stuff that I'm shooting for. As long as that is accomplished, I've made a successful stride in our business that day. And if that's done, then I can relax. It doesn't feel like I have a million open tabs in my brain trying to manage it all and feeling, like I'm not doing enough or keeping up fast enough or whatever the case is. I think it's another really big added benefit to having focused goals and plans. So that's kind of what that looks like. The next portion I want to talk about briefly is just community naming. So our community is currently called Swift Intents Pro. And while it is a reflection of our brand, and Swift Intents is kind of our big brand that Steve and I have joined forces on, I don't know that this fully captures like the essence of what our community is. So we're exploring some other ideas there, just a small little adjustment to really help people better understand what this community is and where the value is in being a part of this. Like I said, our overall goal here is to have a very strong community of indie developers that are shipping apps and making money, and we want to help you do that. So one benefit of joining is getting direct access to me and Steven to ask questions along your indie developer journey and learn exactly what we're doing on a day-to-day basis to make these apps successful. So we're exploring different options there. And then I wanted to take a brief moment to talk about content and consistency and the importance of this. So there's been lots of talk online lately about how important it is to show up every day and to lock in and, really build up your social media accounts. And I think that this is really important to grow an audience and to grow distribution for any product that you are working on. A really cool moment for me yesterday is Steve and I were talking, and he showed me that there was playback speeds for audio messages. I was like, oh, this is like game changer. We were talking about needing this. We were even exploring an app to add this into iMessages because it's so inconvenient. Turns out it's been there since iOS 16. I had no idea. But I tweeted about it, and one of the creators that I look up to and really appreciate his content is Sean Allen. Quoted that tweet and, got some interest there. It helped my reach with that too. So thanks, Sean, for, the retweet. Really appreciate that. But it was just really cool to see that, like, even a little bit of effort of trying to be consistent every day with social media, like people do start to see your posts, people do start to interact, and you just kind of have to learn what hits and what doesn't. So again, thanks Sean for that. I look forward to seeing more of your content. That's about where we're at for today's update. One thing I want to incorporate into these videos is our growth, and sharing that with you all. I have a little spreadsheet here of how we are doing. I'm just kind of making updates as I go on a day-to-day basis so we can track what's working and kind of what's not. So I'm going to go and get these metrics and plug them in. Currently, I am at 849 followers on X, so that is up from 5 yesterday. Me and Steven are just kind of tracking this independently because part of our strategy is to grow our personal accounts because we already have some established credibility and a following there instead of starting over with a new account. I think that just kind of made more sense. And so for youtube.com/@SwiftIntents. Right here, we're at 4 subscribers now. Awesome to see that. So that's just going to be showing our growth and how we're doing kind of over time. And we'll be updating this on a daily basis just to see, so we can see what's working and what's not. Thanks for tuning in to today's update. We will catch you in the next one.